Holly Henn. I'm the president and CEO of Critical Business Analysis. I worked in construction most of my life, and I moved over into the consulting world, into project management, project controls, software services about a year and a half ago. Today we're going to talk about our partnership with Oracle and the products and services that they offer into the marketplace. Project management, information systems, and scheduling. We're also going to talk about why you may need them, how to evaluate where you are in your business process to determine which one fits best for you. So with that, I'd like to introduce Garrett.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks for having us. Great to be with everybody here. So Garrett Harley, I work in our product marketing organization for the construction and engineering business unit inside Oracle. You could think of that as sort of the legacy Primavera / Unifier / Aconex acquisition business. So we've got a lot of different products that sit inside the C&E business unit today. I'm a user myself. Started off my project controls career almost 30 years ago with Bechtel in San Francisco, and moved over to become part of the Primavera legacy business through the acquisition into Oracle. I've held a variety of different roles while I've been here over that tenure. And great to be here for this discussion. This is a great topic.
One of the things that we're going to talk about today is the project management maturity model. And this is something as a business, a contractor, or an owner who builds a lot of projects can use to really determine where they are in this model. So there's different steps, there's different evaluation terms that we're going to talk about. Garrett, would you like to elaborate on how you help clients determine where they're at in that model and what it means?
Sure. For those that aren't familiar, the nice part about the project management maturity model is that it's not a model that any one vendor came up with or owns. This is an industry model to essentially help any organization evaluate what they want to do on their project management journey by being able to assess sort of where their current state is. So what do places like CBA and Oracle help partner with you to do? A is we got great services expertise regionally where you are that can come in and be able to help you understand exactly what level you're currently at. And once you've got that assessment done, you can start talking about, well, what sort of processes and procedures would we want to start targeting to be able to move up in those maturity models if and when those things make sense for you to do. What I think is fascinating, and I'm sure Holly would reinforce this, is that when we go out and we do this assessment work with customers, most self-assess to be at a higher level than where they might actually be. And that's okay, right? I think most of us would like to be able to sort of draw the waterline that we're maybe better at some of these things than we really are. But I think in truth, a lot of customers have a ways to go in being able to move those standards for what project management can do and bring back to your organizations by being able to really thoroughly understand what that current assessment state looks like. So it's important to do, and it's important to do with help. It's difficult to do those sorts of assessments on your own, so being able to enlist partners like what CBA does, like this is absolutely critical to making sure that you know where you are. And then you can build a collective plan, a joint plan, to talk about how you advance up levels. Really important to understand. It's great because all those processes of what it means to be at specific levels within the project management maturity model are well defined. So you know exactly where you're going to start, and you can know exactly what direction you want to move and where you want to get to.
That's a really good point that you bring up, is doing that with help, because anybody can go to ChatGPT and type in project maturity model and read all about it and think that they can do the assessment themselves. And it's not that they can't, but when you go get help from somebody who doesn't live and breathe your organization, can objectively see where your blind spots are and really help you get a good evaluation and then help you build a plan. Because again, building a good plan for improvement or growth takes some objectivity, right? And I'm sure you've seen that when you've worked with some people.
Absolutely. Really what you're using the PMM for and what you are using places like CBA for should be the integration of essentially three things: your people, your process, and your tech. And all three of those things need to be essentially tied together for you to be able to continue to advance up the PMM.
What is your advice to an organization when they think they might need more than what they have? You know, how do they start to internally decide, well, do we have standards? How do I even figure out if we have standards? What would your advice be at that beginning point? And then take us through a growth cycle with a company where they do engage a partner like CBA, and we work with Oracle and the products and services that they have in the market, and what that kind of looks like in a case study.
Yeah. So the nice part about the maturity model is that all the stages of where you may currently be, where you want to move to, are pretty well defined. So there's an initial, there's a repeatable, there's a defined step, there's a managed step, and there's an optimized step. So what level you are within that continuum obviously can vary. But let's go back to the initial question you had on, how do you know if you have standards? I think this is pretty debatable because it's hard to figure out in some cases where to really draw a meaningful waterline. Because I might say, I have a shared Google document. And we treat that in my organization as the standard for where I can have multiple people get to a spreadsheet, a shared sheet for us to be able to update it. Is it secure? Is it scalable? What's the data that we want in and out of that? Who comes in and does that? Is there a process or procedure associated with it? So what do we mean by standard? That's where I wanted to get back to that. It should ideally be the intersection of the people that are involved in any given engineering or construction process, the process itself that you want to actually execute, and the tech that you might be using to do that. Saying that we have a standard way that the people operate and a standard way that the process is run and a standard set of tools or tool that we use, all three of those things need to be talked about at the same time. And then it gets a little bit more complicated when we start talking about, well, great, what sorts of engineering or construction processes do we want to standardize? Is it around how we manage contracts? It is how we do bidding? Is it how we plan or schedule something? Is it just how we deal with change? Is it how we manage risk? Back to that current state evaluation, this is why I think your point is so smart, Holly, of just saying objective review by a third party that can come in and be able to look at where are your people doing this stuff, what processes do you want to go through and see improvement on, and what sorts of tools are you currently using to manage those processes. You have a very clean way of being able to sort of stand back, look at it, and go, okay, looks a little bit more standard over here when we start talking about maybe like the project initiation process. But as soon as we start getting into the depths of planning and scheduling, it looks like the wheels on the wagon just come right off. Everyone's doing it a different way, or we pick a different size tool for a different size project. There's lots of variables. The important part is to help those organizations assess what those variables are. And that's where organizations like CBA are so important.
And you touched on a really important point I want to just dive into a little bit deeper is the reason to have an objective observer to help an organization analyze that information is because depending on the age of the organization or the age and longevity of the people working within the different departments that are doing different things, everybody has their own opinion on where that process is, and it's been good enough, right? So why do we need to change? And having an outside observer or an objective person that can help funnel those conversations to take the feelings or the buy-in that some people have very passionate opinions about why companies have done what they've done for so long and why do we need to change, and this is just going to create more work. Being able to have a consultant there, being able to have an experienced Oracle partner who knows how these software implementations go to help facilitate those conversations just makes the whole process way smoother.
I completely agree. So what I find fascinating, and this is true of every single customer I've ever worked with, doesn't matter if you're an owner or a delivery team, is most of us don't really measure my current state. It's what we just refer to as business as usual, right? This is the way we're doing it. This is business as usual. I don't really have a clear understanding of what that might cost me in terms of either time or money. Where is the waste that might be associated with the way I'm currently doing it? Very smart statement, Holly, of hey, we get in there, we start talking to a lot of organizations, and what we can begin to help them do is get their arms around that quantification without having it feel like it's a heavy-handed, boy, these are all the things you're doing wrong. More than it's an aspirational component of, this is why the maturity model exists, is to talk about ways we can continue to incrementally improve. And we can bite-size those improvements with specific processes and procedures over time. But it is a huge benefit to any organization to really understand, like you mentioned, the why are we doing this and getting that outlined right up front. So if we can align the why we're doing this with what those organizations' goals and strategies and objectives are, then everybody gets bought into the journey we're going to move on and moving up the maturity model.
It is so wild to me, the companies that I have worked for over the years that don't even know that they don't know what they're losing. right?
The Rumsfeld strategy? Yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are the projects that we think we might win, that we did win, that we're not sure. I hear you.
Yes, yes, and it's mind-blowing to me sometimes on how can you be comfortable with not understanding the work effort that went into that, or having 5 to 10 years worth of data to look at to analyze what you should know,
Yeah.
and to know what you don't know.
There are plenty of small and large organizations out there that, regardless of all of their best intentions, still make money sort of despite themselves. That doesn't mean that there aren't ways that we can incrementally help folks get better, if you're interested in it.
Right.
And that is a fascinating component of this thing. It does still boil down to, at least right now, it still boils down to people until we program the robots to fight with each other. But that was always my favorite part of project controls, was I fell in love with the projects, and I fell in love with the teams that I was working on those projects. I can rattle off my favorite projects that I ever worked on. It had a little less to do with the actual asset or the thing that we made, but I absolutely remember the people.
Yeah.
So, I can name those things, every single person I've ever met, across an almost 30-year career in this whole thing. You can say, what's your favorite project? And that thing is right at the top of their head. Like, they can rattle that off, and you ask them why, they go, gosh, it wasn't like it was necessarily on time or budget. Hopefully it was. But they'll remember the people, how they felt when they were delivering it, how excited the team was to go through and make that thing happen. Those are aspirational things that, again, related back to the maturity model, because organizations were prioritizing being able to understand what those clear why objectives were, and they wanted more standards. They wanted more automation. They wanted more simplification. They wanted more engagement. That kind of stuff aligned with what you do in not just the maturity model, but within all the project management systems that you use to support that maturity model, critically important.
And I think that a lot of people look at these software programs and think, well, it's just trying to take my job over, or I'm now stuck doing this activity or this thing to enter data into this software, and it doesn't help me, right? Or they can't see that initial benefit, especially the people who are maybe in the field or doing the work every day. And I think the important thing to remember, especially when you're a company trying to decide what software to use or how to grow or where you're at in that model, is how can you use this technology, this software, this tool, to leverage it to improve people's time, people's enjoyment at work, people feeling like they are contributing and being productive.
The tech is absolutely moving fast. That's a much bigger conversation that we can certainly get into. Maybe this is additional pods, right, where we can talk about, what is AI going to be doing to advance more specifically, like what's going to happen in engineering and construction. I think there's a lot of big overarching concepts that are going to change things, and for the better. Right? I don't look at it as a complete doomsday sort of thing if something's going to run in and take your position away, like right away. But there's that integration of software, and if I still continue to agree with the Andreessen, software will continue to eat the world. That is still by and large true. Immensely valuable when we deploy it the right way. But I think you mentioned something earlier on, and I wanted to come back to it, which is I think a lot of people also mistake being able to have the software solve all the problems. Meaning that I have a lot of organizations I've worked with in the past where when we go through and put something in, rather than having the organization really understand what they want their business processes to be, they want the software to essentially sort of dictate, or it already does dictate what that business process will look like. And if it's rigid, it may not really fit for you. So, are things purpose-built for your industry? That's important. Are they putting the correct business processes in there that you execute? That's important. Is it flexible enough for you to be able to make changes to it if you don't like it? If that doesn't work for you, that's important. So, having a process get dictated by software alone as a replication for like being able to jump into a best practice like right out of the gate, I think a lot of people think, I'm just going to buy this thing and it's going to fix it.
Yeah.
It's like, it can help, but people still screw stuff up, and we're still involved in putting those things in. Yeah. As much automation and standardization as we can do to help you there, right? It still is going to boil down to, do people understand what that process is there to support? Is the tech easy to be able to pick up and use? Is it coming at the right time? There are all sorts of ways that the inputs leading to the outputs can be helpful, but it's garbage in, garbage out. So if we're not feeding project information in truthfully, correctly, it's not going to spit out things that are going to be helpful for us. All of those, all the magic that we associate with things like AI aren't going to become nearly as true or as valuable or as useful. Those insights won't become real if it's looking at or being able to get used from essentially poor data sets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think you have a good point there where a lot of people will buy that software thinking it's going to fix everything and I don't actually have to fix my processes. And they find out the hard way, and it usually turns into being a very expensive way, that when you don't address the processes and you do just go buy that software, you are spending a lot of money trying to make that software fix and work things that really needed to have been fixed before you bought the software.